It was just a few weeks ago that the Tampa Bay area was devastated by the storm surge of Hurricane Helene. People that never thought they would have a problem suddenly had several feet of water in their homes. Now, I'm a bit more inland and consider myself lucky because this is really the worst we had to deal with. A tree that looked pretty healthy just snapped in half. And now, at the time of saying this, we're in the path of what is supposed to be an even stronger, more direct storm. While we're not sure what Hurricane Milton will bring, this snapped tree was a huge wake-up call because it fell within a few feet of one of the nicer field cars. And you could see, all of these cars are basically surrounded by trees. It's times like these that make you realize that maybe all this stuff isn't so important, and maybe I need to do away with a lot of it. So today is the beginning of a fresh start. I'm going to get rid of most of these, but we've got to secure them first. It was easy to move most of these, but a few gave me a little trouble. Neutral, shut it down. There's one successful move. All right, key, foot on the brake. Oh man, it's wanting to jump forward. There we go. All right. Oh man, it doesn't want to go into gear at all. This is not usual, look. See this? Think that this would be your clutch fluid. Oh, look at how bad that fluid is. You're not gonna believe it, but I'm feeling the clutch pressure come back right now. I'm feeling it. All we need is first gear, baby. All we need is first gear, and then we'll figure out your problems later. Come on. I feel a clutch. I feel a clutch. All right, here we go. Ah, there we go. Never give up. This car's got this really bitey clutch, and I've stalled it a few times since I've driven it. Let's see, we don't want to stall right now. There we go, here we go. Perfect. We got a moving Camaro. Now, I tend to buy these cars with some type of issue from the auction. A bunch have some pretty severe mechanical problems, and a few just need their tires aired up, which is no problem with Fantic's X8 Apex tire inflator, which you can get for the lowest price of the year right now over at Amazon during Prime Big Deal Days. It's the simplest way to inflate your Dilettante. Just set the pressure, hit on, and it will automatically stop when it's full. And it can go all the way up to 150 PSI. And so can the X9 Pro. This little guy is super portable and will only be $39 with my exclusive discount code. And if you have a truck, the X9 Ultra is the way to go. It's the fastest of the bunch and can top off a 33-inch tire in a little over 30 seconds. You'll find discount codes for each one of these tire inflators down in the description box, but a few of them also have coupon codes on Amazon's product page, so you can double dip here. Make sure you clip that coupon on Amazon's product page, use my exclusive discount code during checkout, which is going to give you the best price of the year on a Fantic tire inflator during Prime's Big Deal Days. Well, I think that's going to do it right there. We pretty much got all the stuff, at least the stuff of value, moved in this open field here, hopefully away from any debris, and getting everything together. And by the way, I say everything. This isn't everything. There's still probably another couple cars. When I say a couple, maybe more like 10 cars scattered around in other places away from trees. It makes me realize how big of a problem I have. Like, this is addiction level buying stuff like this RS7. You buy it because you're getting a great price on it at the time. You use it for a few months and then, well, you just kind of sit on it. And, well, just looking at everything here, I counted up really quick. Just in this cluster, there's 12 cars. I'm going to set a limit. And I'm going to say I can keep 3 of these 12 right here, and the rest of them got to go. So right now, I want to do a meaningful update on some of these cars because a lot of the stuff I haven't shown before. And also, we got some stuff that is finally back home. I'm really excited about one of these cars because it turned out way better than I could have ever imagined. It's the one hiding behind that AMG. And we're going to start with it. It's my Ferrari 599. This car was away from home for well over a year at my friend V-Tune's shop. And while it still looks pretty ratty, it is so much better than when I got it. This was basically a parts car when I got it. And, you know, passion took over and we decided we were going to rebuild it. And boy, V2 made basically a miracle happen. This thing was sitting lopsided, all four wheels were caved in, and now it's sitting evenly on four wheels and tires. These aren't really the right size wheels or tires, but we adapted them to fit the car just to be able to move it on and off the transport truck. He's got it even. He's got all the body panels on. And again, even though it's 3 different colors, this is a paint job and a windshield away from being a whole car, and a few little interior things, which I'll show you here in a moment. But this fender right here was so difficult to get. My friend Scott, who's also known as Radarosa, he actually carried it on in his luggage from England. We found this in the UK. We bought it. A friend of mine named Alex, he obtained it. Then he had it transported to Scott. So just to get this body panel right here was a huge feat. And he also got me this bumper at the same time, just because we found a deal on it, and we got this rear bumper for like a couple $100, which is, you know, unheard of as far as Ferrari parts go. The only real things that need to be probably replaced. This is an aftermarket hood. It looks okay from here, but it will never be great. It's really thin fiberglass. It's also stuck shut, so I don't know how I'm going to get it open. And the front bumper, this is an original Ferrari bumper, but it was pretty heavily damaged. And so V2 went and fiberglassed it in as best as he could, but it's still pretty rough. So if I was able to get a replacement bumper and hood, it would really make this car a lot nicer, make it great, and make it ready almost to do, you know, full paint and body job on it. And then the interior, well, everything is just kind of here. We do have a airbag that went off here in the door, and we also have one that went off in the dashboard. But the nice thing about these cars is that this is one of these modular airbags, so it doesn't destroy your entire dashboard leather. It just is this little square here. I've already got the replacement part, and the funny thing is that it's the same exact one off of a Maserati Quattroporte, the old ones that nobody wants anymore. So the parts prices are like really inexpensive. Now, if you go to Ferrari and want to buy these airbags, I'm guessing they're a couple $1,000s each. But again, same ones off of Maserati. The door ones are off of a Gran Turismo. I already got them. They're a few $100. And it's just a matter of finding under the dashboard where everything mounts and replacing it, of course, clearing the modules. And then we've got a Ferrari with the Enzo V12 in it. And while I probably have more money into it than it's going to be worth with a branded title, at least it will be done, and it will be a running and driving car, and it will be relatively cheap for a Ferrari 599. If you'd have asked me a month ago before this car came home whether I was planning on keeping this car, I was going to say absolutely not. I didn't think it could turn out as decent as it did. It runs and drives so decent right now that I think this is going to be one of the 3 we're going to hold on to. But if I had to sell the car as it sits right now, a clean title, really nice example would be like 120 to 130,000. This one, I'd probably take half of that just to get rid of it, along with all the parts that will make it whole. But that would still be a tough sale because it's an unfinished project car. Now, if I was more practical and didn't care so much about saving these crash cars, this Camaro is the most exciting car of the bunch, one of the most exciting cars I've bought in recent memory, and it actually delivered when it showed up. So this was an as-is car. I kind of saw it last minute and figured if it went for a reasonable price, it'd be worth picking up. And what I saw in the auction photos was, you know, a relatively good condition car, but again, being listed as is, you got to wonder what's wrong with it. I saw this right here in the engine bay. This is an aftermarket supercharger coolant tank. And really, you know, in the auction photo, this is what you see right here. You don't see any further. Also, there's an engine cover that's missing here. And while I'm not like too familiar with these cars, I figured if someone went and got an aftermarket coolant reservoir tank, there's got to be more to the story here. I did a little bit of searching, and after just a few minutes of looking up this VIN, I found posts from the original owner on like a Camaro registry online. This thing has basically every single bolt-on you can have. Cam, pulleys. It's definitely got an aftermarket clutch setup because the flywheel is super light. And of course, it's a 6-speed manual transmission. They estimated this car at around 700 and something wheel horsepower, and it definitely has it. It's a lot of fun. It is insanely fast, and it just needs some really mild reconditioning. As I experienced when I moved it over here, either the master cylinder's getting weak, which shouldn't be too hard of a job, or it could just be that really dirty clutch fluid. But either way, this is a car that like terrifies me. I drove it for a couple weeks, and it's got like so much power all at once. It has this incredible supercharger whine that it's tough because you get used to stuff like this, the Audi RS7, that has incredible power, is super fast, but it's very manageable power, whereas this, it's a muscle car. It's mean, and the supercharger whine is enough to make me want to keep it, but I can't see myself really enjoying this and using this as much as someone else could. So I would definitely sell this. I'd probably put it for sale somewhere in the mid-20s, 25, 26,000, which I think is pretty reasonable for a really good running Z01 Camaro with a stick shift. That's the important part, and that's what helps with the resale value of these cars. The automatics can be had quite a bit cheaper. 6-speed manual is the way to go. And well, it'll be a ton of fun for someone, but I do plan on making a full video on this one. Now that we kind of jumped in the middle here, let's get a little bit of organization, talk about the stuff up front, stuff that I have shown in the past. This one pains me. Again, when I moved it up here, it just is such an excellent running and driving car. We got to get it sorted. This has a transmission issue. The people that know about the transmissions that come in these AMG GTs are well aware of the problems. There's one guy out there named the Hollywood Mechanic, and he's given some great insight on how to take apart and service these transmissions, but there are so many little intricate things that, if not done right, will turn a few $1,000 job into a $15,000 or $20,000 job, and I can't afford to risk it. Yes, it looks like it's in awful shape, but this is a wrap, so I'm kind of just hopeful that it is protecting the paint at this point. The interior is still beautiful, really clean, super low mile car. But I'm trying not to stay married to any of this stuff. If I did sell this one, I would want right around $52,000 for it. It does have a branded title, but it only has 18,000 miles. And as far as I know from its history that I have, it wasn't in any super severe accidents or anything like that. But again, it's a bit of a discount to deal with a bit of a basket case. Now next to it is the Audi RS7, a car that I bought very impulsively. It was a great deal. Right after we got this car, we took it straight to the dealer where they did its turbo screen recall, and that's one of those good recalls where the job is so labor intensive and they have to drop a couple fluids. You end up getting new oil, new coolant out of it, and they check out the turbochargers while they're at it, and they deemed them good. They extended the warranty on them, and it was a great car. I drove it for several months, but shortly after I got that over there, the Tesla P90D. To be honest, I just love plugging that thing in and driving it. It's been great. I've had a few little issues on it, which we'll get to in a moment. But this is one of those cars that I'm just not using. And I would prefer someone else starts using it because it's doing me no good just sitting here. I paid right over 30,000 bucks for the car. We put in some brake pads. And again, just little things here. I didn't spend too much money on it. This is a facelifted car. It's got some higher miles, right in the 120,000 range. Personally, I would take less for it because the market hasn't really improved on them, but since it's an RS car, it does hold its value. I think a good deal for someone on this would be like $27,000. You let me know what you think in the comments. Is that too high? I'm not really sure. I haven't looked up the prices, but definitely would want to move along from this one. And so far, we've only said we're going to keep one car, which is the Ferrari. We're doing good. We're doing good here. So the Tesla is a Tesla. We already know that these cars are polarizing for some reason. But when you start to get used to an electric car and plugging it in and driving past the gas stations, especially right now while there are these massive lines at the gas stations, it's just super convenient. I enjoy it, but the one thing I haven't enjoyed is that little things on it break, and the parts aren't as simple to go and obtain like you just go to a parts counter. Supposedly they're available from Tesla. Now what Tesla expects you to do is to go on the mobile app, file for a service appointment to get this fixed, and that's what I did. And actually what I got back was really surprising. So to fix the latch, they offer me two options. They could just fix the motor, which is usually the problem, or the motor and the latch. The price range from like $120 to $240. But the thing is, a guy comes to you to fix it. And what I thought was fascinating is the guy that showed up was in an older Model X that they had converted into a service truck. I love efficiency in business, and that's like the ultimate efficiency. You're not buying cars from your competitors, you're using old trade-ins that you wouldn't sell otherwise. And so he showed up, he was there for nearly 2 hours. I opted to get everything done. But again, it's $240, and I gotta be honest, my charge door still acts up from time to time. That's like another $240 fix. So if you figure little things breaking on these cars, because there's so many different electronically actuated things, like the door handles that pop out, those are known to break all the time. The window actuator that I already fixed one of, if in theory every other month something breaks and it costs you $300 to $500 to fix, you could go find one of these EVs that they're throwing cheap lease specials on right now and be enjoying a newer EV and eat the money in depreciation instead of fixing your old used Tesla. So that basically sums up why these old Model S's are cheap. If there were ever to be a motor or battery failure, it would greatly outweigh the expense of driving like a 10-year-old BMW M3. But then again, the upfront costs are cheaper than that, and the performance is similar, right? So you let me know what you think in the comments. Is a cheap old Tesla cheap enough, or would you rather buy something older and gas-powered? Speaking of something older and gas-powered, we got the Lincoln Blackwood truck. We don't just have one of those. There's a second one over there. And I had been looking for one of these for the longest time. And the story goes that I buy that one over there, private party from somebody. And I happen to have a proxy bid in at the auction for one. And I forgot to take that proxy bid out, and I won the second one. So I got two of these trucks. And currently I'm not so sure what to do with them, although when you look these up and you find them on Marketplace, they're usually in pretty battered shape. Both of these are halfway decent. When I say halfway decent, I mean literally halfway. Like the body's straight, the wood paneling is still in the bed, the interior, again, not perfect, but not bad for, what is this, a 20-plus-year-old truck. And they still start over and drive. Neither one of them has air conditioning, but they're both Lincoln Blackwoods, and well, I'd end up getting rid of both of these somewhere in the $5,000 range each. That seems to be like what a cheap used one runs. I spent more than $5,000 on this one. The nice thing about this one is it is like all original. This one has the air suspension, it has the navigation screen in it that is completely sun damaged at this point, and that's how you find pretty much all of them. But this one was kept really nice from its previous owner, and well, it's a Lincoln Blackwood. What more do you want me to say about it? Moving on to the third row of cars here, and to probably the most disappointing car I've bought in recent memory is this Porsche with the turbo kit. Now it's disappointing because when I bought it, it was supposed to be so exciting. You just see the aftermarket wheels. You know it's got the turbo kit on it. Like everything on this car had been touched, and that proved to be more of a problem than a bonus. Now, hindsight's always interesting, especially on car projects, but when I made the first video on this car where we basically rebuilt the turbo, we got it to stop smoking, I got a lot of comments saying that, hey, that turbo, it's gonna smoke in short order because it's sitting so low, you need a scavenge pump setup. The scavenge pump setup is basically a system to take the oil away from the turbocharger because, you know, gravity is pulling the oil down low. So we went and installed this entire pump setup. It was kind of a decent sized hassle, and I got to tell you, it didn't make the car any better. It smokes a tiny bit. It doesn't smoke as nearly as much as it did before. But here's the funny thing. A few months later, well after posting the video, after kind of tidying this thing up, and then we spent another few $1,000s getting the suspension all sorted with the coilover setup, I got another comment from a person that seems to be really well versed in turbochargers, stating that he's had a bunch of customers with this similar setup and with the same issue. And it's not necessarily that you need a scavenge pump, it's that one of the fittings that goes into the turbocharger is just too small, and it restricts the amount of oil that it's able to flow, constantly backing it up, blowing the seals out, and causing it to smoke. And he shows the fix to this is just to bore out the hole in this fitting. Shortly after all that, the previous owner of this car reached out to me and sent me an invoice for over $10,000 worth of service work to this car at an independent shop doing everything from the clutch, flywheel, the rear main seal, to rebuilding this turbocharger. And it was done like less than 10,000 miles ago. So it is clear that that smoking issue out the turbo is a greater problem than just rebuilding the turbo seals. And I wonder if that would fix it. But at this point, I have spent so much time and energy trying to sort this car. And at the end of it all, I do think there's drivability issues potentially in the tune. I'm not sure of that. It could just be with that turbocharger. And I'm ready to move along from it. I would ask $15,000 for this car. It needs a little bit of paint work because it's fading on the roof and the trunk. That's kind of how I got it. But I would tell you that if you were to take the turbocharger off of it and just have a 5-speed manual Cayman, those cars are selling easily in the high teens now. Whoever buys this, it comes with the disclaimer that it is a total project car. It's got a lot of money worth the parts in it. Heck, the turbocharger kit alone cost someone $12,000. So for an extra $3,000, well, you get a $3,500 coilover setup and a whole Porsche for free. But when it comes to free Porsches, this is the closest thing you're gonna find. $700 Cayenne S. If you didn't already check out the video on this one, I don't wanna spoil it for you, but with fees and everything, this was $925, this car. And I haven't put a single dime into it past that. I put a bit of time into it, and well, the fix ended up being exactly what we thought it was. It's very common on these old Cayennes and Touaregs. The video link is going to be above, but this one was too much fun. Again, if you haven't seen it already, check it out. Next to it is a car that I thoroughly enjoyed. This is one that even though I will lose a lot of money on, we put some miles on it, we used it, and we loved it and enjoyed it for the time being. The Range Rover long wheelbase autobiography, and you buy this car because it auto locks the doors. No, you buy this car for the rear seats, not the front seats. I'm going to see if I can't show you real quick how amazing it is to sit back here. You have all this amazing legroom because it's the long wheelbase, and then you've got the partition in the middle because it's got the executive seating package, which is pretty rare on these cars. And this is the thing that really helps maintain the value of these older Range Rovers. Without that, the long wheelbase is still semi-desirable, but it brings a $15,000 or $16,000 car up to like a $23,000 or $24,000 car. Currently, this thing developed a suspension clunk, and I just said enough is enough. It's an old Range Rover. Let someone else figure it out. I'm going to sell this one as is, and like I said, that's going to cost me a lot because I spent in the mid-20s for it. But I would sell this somewhere in the higher teens and be thrilled with it. And I'd be reluctant to sell it to somebody as like a drive it home across the country sort of thing. I'll probably send it to the auction as is, and hopefully we get somewhere in that high teens mark. Now this is a new one that I got. It's probably the newest, well, it's not the newest model year, but it's the newest one to show up in the field out of all the cars. And it's exactly what it looks like. It is one of these S65 BMW M6s. And what I really liked about this when I saw it at the auction was that it was the right car at the right price at the right time with the factory wheels. You know how many times I see people swap the wheels out on these cars, and even though they're pretty heavy, BMW did some cool things with these cars, like these wheels, which are known to be a lightweight wheel. There's also a lightweight carbon fiber roof that obviously needs a little bit of help. The clear coat on it is failing a bit, but on the inside, at first glance, the seats look mint. Someone did take care of this car, and I think most importantly, they took care of it mechanically. It runs and drives really good. This is why this car was a reasonable price, and it's a bit of a headache, but I think it's something we can get done. You can see the dashboard came as leather. I hate leather dashboards because this inevitably happens to all of them. This was in a southern state. I want to hear what you guys have to say about flocking dashboards. Do you think this dashboard could look good flocked? Because if so, that would be like $100 solution to this car's dash problem. Then we could clear coat that roof. we'd have a really pretty decent M6. These cars in good running and driving shape are easily worth in the mid-teens. This one runs and drives very good, but again, it needs some of that interior cosmetic help. As far as keeping this car or not, I wouldn't be married to it, and I'd probably let it go for what I paid for it, which is right around $9,000. Again, for a mechanically good M6, I think that's a fair price. But the one that I would keep is right here. I've talked about this one a lot. The ZR1, which surprisingly moved over here pretty well. There is one minor issue that we experienced after fixing basically everything on it. We replaced every single wear component you could figure under the hood. So underneath the plenum here is our alternator, and we did replace this. And one day I was driving it, and I noticed that I started to lose power, and basically the screen was flickering in and out. And I'm like, well, I already replaced the battery, we replaced the alternator, what could go wrong? When you go to the parts store or you go online to the parts catalog, they say that the standard Corvette and the ZR1 have the same alternator, and it's true, the alternator itself is the same, but the pulley on the ZR1 is a hair bit smaller. So by running the bigger pulley that came with the reman or the new alternator, well, it actually burns out the alternator and also kills your battery at the same time. So it's a $300 bill and a little bit of a headache, but I kept the old alternator, so I have the stock size pulley, which is like near impossible to find. Either way, I love this thing. We went through a lot with it. It didn't cost me a lot, so it's staying around for right now. So there's two. That means I get to keep one more, and we've only got one other car. This was a decommissioned cop car I saw. I liked for one main reason, and no, it's not the terrible looking seat cushion. When you find all these old decommissioned cop cars, the interiors are usually pretty beat. But the main reason I like this one is that it came with an engine that you usually don't get in this car. Usually these things come with just V6s, just naturally aspirated V6s, but this might look familiar to the EcoBoost crowd because it is an EcoBoost like you'd find in a Ford F-150. So it is a twin turbo cop car, and it also came with all the gear still installed, and I'm giving away a little bit of its plans by showing you the back seat. But most of these decommissioned cop cars you find, they take out the cage, they take out these rear seats and stuff. This has everything. And it's actually a little concerning if you're like working on it and you get closed in the back here, because there's absolutely no way to get out. There's no door handles or anything. So even though I'm not married to it, and I would definitely sell it probably in the $6,000 range, it is super, super cool. It's fun to have around. You do tend to get a lot of attention in it, and I don't know how much of that attention is positive. A lot of people would call this video a garage update. This is our field update, and I'm really hoping there are no more updates to this update. And the next video is us hopping to work on one of these cool old or new projects. And really, when you're moving this stuff for the reason that, you know, I got it out here in the middle of the field, it really dawns on you that this stuff is just stuff. It could be replaced. And while, again, I don't want anything to happen to any of my cars because I do like them, I see the videos of people's homes being devastated, and I have friends locally in Tampa that had 4 and 5 feet of water in their house, and that is the stuff that you just don't want to see, don't want to hear about, but it's the reality with these storms. Luckily, we're a bit more inland, so again, our fingers are crossed, even though we're close to this path here, that everything stays put, our homes and our families stay safe, and that's what I'm hoping for all you guys watching that live in Florida, especially if you're on the West Coast somewhere. I'm thinking about you, we're praying for you, and I want to thank everybody who sent me messages. I've gotten so many emails, DMs, text messages from all you guys just wishing me the best, and I can't thank you enough for that. And I also want to thank you guys for allowing this sort of stuff to happen, because without you watching, even though this is kind of a strange addiction, it's a passion, and I love it so much. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you very soon.